My aunt took me in for 2 summers. 20 years later she sued me for half my house. Posted to r/am ithasshole. I've been staring at this legal letter for 3 days now. It sits on my kitchen table, next to my cold coffee and the remnants of meals I barely remember eating. The letterhead is crisp, professional, the kind of document that demands to be taken seriously. And I do take it seriously. I just don't understand it. My aunt is suing me. Or threatening to, anyway. Her lawyer is demanding compensation for child care services rendered during what they're calling my extended guardianship period. They want 50% of my home's current market value. That's roughly $287,000. For 2 summers. 2 summers when I was 14 and 15 years old. I'm a marine biologist, an oceanographer, technically, and I've spent my career studying systems. Currents, ecosystems, the way one change ripples through an entire environment. I understand cause and effect on a molecular level. But this defies every logical framework I've ever built. Was I really that much of a burden? I was 14. I didn't ask to be sent there. Let me start from the beginning. The summers. My parents' divorce wasn't one of those quiet, civilized separations you read about. It was volcanic, the kind where lawyers become extended family members and your childhood home transforms into a war zone. I was 14 the summer it peaked, caught between 2 people who loved me but couldn't stand to look at each other, and by extension, couldn't quite figure out what to do with me. My mother's solution was to send me to her sister's house, 4 hours north, in a small coastal town that smelled like salt and pine. Just for the summer, she said. Until we sort things out. My father agreed, which should have told me something. They never agreed on anything anymore. I remember the drive up. My mother's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and she kept apologizing. Not for sending me away, exactly, but for everything. For the fighting. For the uncertainty. For making me feel like a chess piece in their game. Your aunt is wonderful, she said. She'll take good care of you. And she did. That's what makes this so complicated. My aunt lived in a weathered blue house with a wraparound porch and a view of the bay. She was in her early 40s then, married to a man who worked on fishing boats and was gone more than he was home. She had no children of her own, not by choice, I learned later, but by circumstance. Medical issues. Years of trying. The kind of grief that settles into your bones. That first summer, she taught me how to fish. Not the lazy, beer and boredom kind of fishing my father occasionally attempted, but real fishing. Understanding tides, reading weather patterns, knowing which spots held which species at which times. She taught me to clean and cook what we caught. She taught me that the ocean wasn't just water, it was a world. Some nights I wonder if I owe her more than I admitted. She did take me in when my parents couldn't handle me. She also taught me to be still. My parents' house had been constant chaos, shouting matches, slammed doors, the suffocating tension of 2 people destroying their marriage in slow motion. My aunt's house was quiet. Peaceful. She didn't ask me to take sides or carry messages. She just let me exist. We'd sit on her porch in the evenings, watching the water turn orange and pink as the sun set, and she'd tell me stories about growing up with my mother. Sisters who were close once, then drifted, the way families do. She never said anything bad about my parents, even when I wanted her to, even when I was so angry I could have screamed. They're doing their best, she'd say. Sometimes people's best isn't very good. But it's still their best. The second summer was more of the same. My parents' divorce had finalized, but the aftermath was still toxic. Custody battles, property disputes, endless legal wrangling. I was sent north again, and again, my aunt took me in without complaint. By then, she'd noticed my fascination with marine life. She bought me field guides, took me to tide pools, introduced me to a retired marine biologist who lived down the road. That man, gruff and brilliant and endlessly patient, became my first mentor. He wrote my recommendation letter for college 8 years later. I keep replaying those summers, looking for signs. Was she keeping score even then? I don't think so. I really don't. She seemed genuinely happy to have me there. She'd joke about having a summer son, about how I ate more than her husband did, about how she'd miss me when September came. When I left for college, she cried at my graduation party. When I got my first research position, she sent me a card that said she was proud of me. So what changed? Update 1. How we got here. 3 weeks since the lawyer letter. I need to explain what happened between those summers and now. 20 years is a lot of ground to cover. After high school, I went to the state university on scholarships and financial aid. My parents were both remarried by then, starting new families, moving on. I visited my aunt occasionally, holidays, summer weekends. She was always welcoming, always interested in my studies. Her husband was around less and less. Their marriage had grown thin, though I didn't know how thin until later. I worked my way through my bachelor's, then a master's, then a PhD. Marine biology isn't a lucrative field, but I was stubborn and passionate and willing to live on ramen for a decade. I did postdocs. I published papers. I built a reputation studying ocean acidification and its effects on coastal ecosystems. At 30, I got a tenure-track position at a university 3 hours from where I grew up. The salary wasn't enormous, but it was stable, more stable than anything I'd ever known. I saved aggressively, invested carefully, and 3 years ago, at 31, I bought a house. It's nothing fancy. A modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, with a small backyard where I've planted a garden. But it's mine. I paid for it with years of discipline and sacrifice, and I'm proud of it. My aunt's life, meanwhile, had taken a different trajectory. Her husband left her 6 years ago. Not for another woman, as far as anyone knows, he just left. Packed a bag one morning and drove away. No warning, no explanation, no forwarding address. After 30 years of marriage, he vanished like smoke. She was devastated. We all were, watching her try to piece together what remained. But worse was coming. Within a year, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, severe, aggressive, the kind that steals your ability to do the simplest things. Then lupus. Then complications from the medications meant to treat everything else. My therapist says I'm not responsible for her financial problems. Then why do I feel like I am? Her medical bills mounted. She had to stop working. Her savings evaporated, then her retirement fund, then the equity in her house. The blue house on the bay, the place where I'd learned to fish, where I'd found peace during the worst years of my childhood, was sold to pay debts. She moved into a small apartment. Then a smaller one. I sent money when I could. Not as much as she needed, maybe, but what I could spare. Birthday cards with checks. Contributions to medical fundraisers her church organized. I visited when my schedule allowed, which wasn't often enough. I know that now. I know that. The hints started about 2 years ago. Update 2. The escalation. 6 weeks since the lawyer letter. At first, it was subtle. Comments slipped into otherwise normal conversations. You know, she said during a phone call, I never did get compensated for those summers. Not that I'm complaining. But your parents just sent you and I took you in and that was that. I didn't know how to respond. You were family, I said. That's what family does. Yes, she agreed. That's what family does. But the comments kept coming. She'd mention opportunities she'd given up to care for me, a job offer in another city, a trip she'd planned to cancel. She talked about the food I'd eaten, the electricity I'd used, the wear and tear on her car from driving me places. She made it sound like I'd been a permanent resident rather than a summer guest. I changed my whole life for you, she said once. And I don't regret it. But sometimes I wonder if anyone noticed. I started to feel guilty. Not because I believed I owed her half my house, but because maybe I hadn't thanked her enough. Maybe I hadn't been sufficiently grateful. Maybe I'd taken those summers for granted, wrapped up in my own adolescent drama while she quietly sacrificed. Maybe I should have just given her something. Not half, but something. Would that have saved the relationship? I increased my financial contributions. I sent larger checks, more frequently. I called more often, drove up for weekend visits despite my workload. I thought I was being a good nephew. I thought we were okay. But it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. 8 months ago, she called me crying. Her rent had increased, her medications had gotten more expensive, and she didn't know how she was going to survive. I talked her through it, helped her find resources, sent what I could. Then she asked for $50,000. Just a loan, she said. You could take it out against your house. I'll pay it back. I said no. Gently, carefully, but no. I explained that I couldn't leverage my home for a loan that might never be repaid. I explained that I had my own financial obligations, student loans still being paid off, retirement accounts to build, the uncertain future of academic funding. I explained that I wanted to help but couldn't bankrupt myself doing it. She didn't take it well. After everything I did for you, she said, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. After I saved your life. Saved my life. You were falling apart when you came to me. Angry, scared, headed for trouble. I straightened you out. I gave you direction. I made you who you are. Was I falling apart? I don't remember it that way. I remember being sad. I remember being confused. But I don't remember being on the edge of destruction. Then again, maybe 14-year-olds don't have the best self-awareness. Maybe she saw things I couldn't see. Some nights I wonder if she's right. If she did save me. If those 2 summers really did make the difference between the person I became and someone else entirely. And if she did save me, what do I owe her for that? Update 3. The letter and the fallout. 2 months since the lawyer letter. The lawyer letter arrived on a Tuesday in March. I'd just gotten home from a research trip, 2 weeks on a vessel in the Pacific, studying bleached coral formations, and my mailbox was overflowing with the usual accumulated mess. Bills, junk mail, academic journals, and one crisp white envelope with a return address I didn't recognize. I read it standing in my kitchen, still wearing my coat, my bags unpacked on the floor. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. My aunt was demanding financial compensation for her role as my guardian and caretaker during my teenage years. She claimed she had never been fairly compensated for her sacrifices, and that my current financial success was a direct result of her intervention in my life. She wanted half my house, or the cash equivalent, within 60 days. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. She'd heard from her sister already, I realized. She knew what was coming. "She's not well," my mother said. "Physically, financially, emotionally. She's desperate. She's suing me." "I know. For 2 summers, Mom. 2 summers." Silence. Then, "She sees it differently." I don't know what I wanted from my mother in that moment. Outrage, maybe. Solidarity. Confirmation that I wasn't the villain my aunt was painting me as. Instead, I got neutrality. Understanding for both sides. A refusal to take a position. It felt like betrayal. It still does, honestly. My mother, who sent me to my aunt in the first place, who started this whole chain of events by being unable to handle her own child during her divorce, she couldn't even say I was right. Maybe I'm not right. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe there's no right here, just competing perspectives and decades of unspoken resentment. I hired a lawyer. Not because I wanted to fight, but because I didn't know what else to do. She reviewed the documents, asked me questions about those summers, and told me what I already suspected: my aunt had no legal case. I was a minor sent to stay with a willing family member during a family crisis. There was no contract, no promise of compensation, no guardianship agreement. What she did was kindness, not employment. "You don't owe her anything," my lawyer said. "Not legally. But what about morally? What about emotionally? What about the debt you accumulate when someone shows you kindness during the worst period of your life?" The family split happened fast. Cousins I'd grown up with stopped returning my calls. My aunt's side of the family closed ranks. I was painted as the ungrateful nephew who got everything and gave nothing back, who abandoned the woman who'd saved him as soon as she needed saving herself. My mother tried to mediate. She arranged a phone call, my aunt and me, with her on the line as moderator. It lasted 12 minutes. "All I want is fairness," my aunt said. "I gave you everything when you had nothing. Now I have nothing, and you have everything, and you won't even share. I've been sending you money for years. Scraps. Pennies compared to what I'm owed. You're not owed. I am owed." Her voice cracked. "I am owed something for my sacrifice. For giving up my chance at motherhood to raise someone else's child. For putting my own life on hold to fix the mess your parents made." It was 2 summers. It was everything. Those 2 summers were everything. The call ended with her hanging up. We haven't spoken since. Update 4. The quiet after. 4 months since the lawyer letter. The legal process, when it finally happened, was anticlimactic. My aunt's lawyer filed a formal claim. My lawyer responded with a motion to dismiss. There were some documents exchanged, some procedural back and forth that I didn't fully understand. Then it was over. My aunt's claim was dismissed. The judge noted the complete absence of any agreement, written or verbal, that suggested compensation was expected. The judge noted that my aunt had voluntarily hosted her nephew during a difficult time, as millions of family members do every day without expectation of payment. The judge noted that 20 years had passed, during which my aunt had apparently never raised this issue with anyone. I won. The lawyer confirmed I owe her nothing. So why does winning feel exactly like losing? I haven't spoken to my aunt in 4 months. I haven't spoken to most of her side of the family in nearly as long. My mother calls occasionally, updating me on news I didn't ask for. My aunt's health is declining, her apartment is too expensive, she's talking about moving to a care facility but can't afford a good one. She's scared, my mother said during our last call. She's 65 years old, she's sick, she's alone, and she's scared. I know. She's not a bad person. I know that too. And I do know it. That's what makes this so hard. My aunt isn't a villain. She's not greedy or manipulative or cruel. She's a woman who spent her life caring for others, her absent husband, her parents until they died, her summer nephew, and now she has nothing left. No children of her own. No savings. No health. No future she can see clearly. She looked at me and saw the one thing she'd invested in that had paid off. She looked at my house, my career, my stability, and she saw the return on her sacrifice. She thought she was entitled to collect. I understand that. I do. In her mind, she raised me. In her mind, those 2 summers shaped my entire life. In her mind, my success is her success, and my refusal to share it is the ultimate betrayal. But I can't agree with her. I worked for what I have. I sacrificed. I lived on nothing for years, took jobs I hated, made choices that were responsible instead of enjoyable. Those 2 summers helped me, yes, they gave me peace when I needed it, direction when I was lost. But they didn't build my career. They didn't earn my degrees. They didn't save for my down payment. I keep thinking about what would have happened if she'd just asked for help. Not demanded. Not hired lawyers. Not framed it as debt collection. If she'd called me and said, "I'm drowning and I need you," I would have found a way to help her. Maybe not half my house, but something substantial. Something real. Instead, she made it transactional. She turned our relationship into a balance sheet and decided I was in the red. And once you do that, once you put a price tag on love, there's no going back. Update 5. Final living with it. 6 months since the lawyer letter. I still have the letter. It's in a drawer now, underneath some old photographs and a birthday card she sent me years ago. The card has a whale on it, an inside joke from those summers, when I'd insisted that orcas were definitely whales and she'd insisted they were dolphins and we'd argued about it for an entire afternoon. She was right, technically. Orcas are the largest members of the dolphin family. But I'd been so certain. I was certain about a lot of things back then. I was certain my parents' divorce was the end of the world. I was certain I'd never forgive them. I was certain my aunt was the only adult who truly understood me. Now I'm 34, and I'm not certain about anything anymore. The other day, I was on campus late, working on a grant proposal that's due next week. The building was empty except for the custodial staff and a few other workaholics. I took a break, walked to the window, and looked out at the parking lot. Completely mundane. Utterly unremarkable. And I started crying. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the accumulated weight of everything I've been carrying. But I stood there in my empty office and cried like I hadn't since those summers, when I was a scared kid who didn't understand why his family was falling apart. My therapist says grief doesn't follow logic. You can grieve something even when you're right about it. You can mourn a relationship while knowing it had to end. You can miss someone who hurt you. I miss my aunt. I miss the woman who taught me to fish, who sat with me on her porch, who believed in me when I was too young and angry to believe in myself. That woman is still in there somewhere, I think. Buried under layers of pain and fear and desperation. But I can't reach her. And she can't reach me. The lawyers and the money and the accusations built walls that neither of us knows how to tear down. Last week, my mother told me my aunt had been hospitalized. Something with her heart, a complication, she said, from all the other complications. She's stable now but weak. Scared. She asked about you, my mother said. What did you tell her? That you're doing well. That you're working hard. That you think about her. I'm not sure that last part was true when my mother said it. But I do think about her. More than I want to admit. I think about writing her a letter. Not an apology. I don't believe I have anything to apologize for, but something. An explanation. A reaching out. A door left open. But what would I say? I forgive you for suing me, but I still won't give you what you want. I understand why you did it, but that doesn't make it okay. I love you, but I can't be the retirement plan you never built. Maybe there are no words for this. Maybe some fractures can't be healed with language. I won this fight. I kept my house, my savings, my financial stability. I protected what I built. But I lost my aunt. I lost my cousins. I lost a piece of my history and a part of my family that I'll never get back. Was it worth it? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Some nights, I dream about that blue house on the bay. In the dreams, I'm 14 again, sitting on the porch with my aunt, watching the water turn colors as the sun goes down. She's healthy and whole and happy. She tells me stories about my mother as a child. She laughs at my bad jokes. She promises that everything will be okay. And then I wake up, and I'm alone in a house I own outright, and the silence is absolute. I won. I was right. The law agreed with me. So why does being right feel like the loneliest thing in the world? Edit. Thank you all for the comments. I've read every one, even the harsh ones. A lot of you have asked what I'm going to do now, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Maybe time will clarify what courage can't. What I know is this: my aunt loved me once, in her way. I loved her too. That hasn't changed, even if everything else has. Some of you say I should write that letter. Some say I should walk away completely. Some say I should have given her the money just to keep the peace. But peace bought with coercion isn't peace. And love demanded under threat isn't love. Whatever my aunt and I had, it's gone now, not because I refused to pay, but because she made it clear that my value to her could be measured in dollars. She's drowning. I see that. She's grabbing at anything that might save her. I was the lifeboat she thought she'd built, and I sailed away when she needed me most. Or, she's drowning because she pushed away everyone who tried to help, and the lawyers and demands were the final shove that sent me beyond her reach. I don't know which story is true. Maybe they're both true. Maybe that's the problem. I keep thinking about something she told me during that second summer. We were sitting on the beach, watching a storm roll in over the water, and she said, "Family is the only thing that lasts. Everything else, money, houses, jobs, it all goes away eventually. But family stays." I wonder if she remembers saying that. I wonder if she'd say it differently now. I remember it, though. I remember everything about those summers. The good parts and the complicated parts and the parts that only started to hurt 2 decades later. I won. I'm legally and financially intact. I protected what I built. And I am so tired of winning. TLDR, my aunt took me in for 2 summers when I was a teenager and my parents were divorcing. She was kind and loving and helped shape my future. 20 years later, she's sick and broke and desperate, and she sued me for half my house as compensation for raising me. I won the case, but I lost my aunt and half my extended family. I don't know how to feel about any of it. Here's what I learned from being sued by the woman who taught me to fish. You can be completely right and still lose everything that matters. For 6 months I've been replaying those summers. Looking for signs. Trying to understand when kindness became currency, when love became a loan with interest accumulating in silence. I still don't have answers. Maybe there aren't any. My aunt wasn't a villain. That's what makes this unbearable. Villains are easy, you fight them, you win, you move on. She was a woman who took in a scared 14-year-old when his world was falling apart. She taught me patience. She gave me direction. She sat with me on her porch and let me exist without demanding anything in return. Or so I thought. Maybe she was keeping score even then. Maybe every meal she cooked, every trip to the tide pools, every quiet evening watching the sunset, maybe it all went into a ledger I didn't know existed. Or maybe the ledger only started when her life collapsed and she looked around for something, anything, that might save her. I'll never know. That's the hardest part. My therapist says I'm not responsible for her financial problems. She's right. I know she's right. I worked for everything I have. I lived on ramen for a decade. I sacrificed things she never saw. Those 2 summers helped me, yes, but they didn't earn my degrees, didn't write my papers, didn't save for my down payment. But knowing I'm right doesn't stop me from wondering, what if I'd just given her something? Not half my house. That was never reasonable. But something. Enough to show I remembered. Enough to acknowledge that those summers mattered. Would that have saved us? Or would it have just delayed the inevitable? Another demand, another disappointment, another lawyer letter? I keep coming back to what she said on the phone. Those 2 summers were everything. To her, maybe they were. Maybe taking care of me was the closest she got to motherhood. Maybe I was the child she couldn't have, the investment she made when everything else was failing. Maybe watching me succeed while she lost everything felt like a betrayal she couldn't name until it exploded. I understand that. I do. Understanding doesn't make it hurt less. She's in the hospital now. Heart problems. My mother says she asked about me. I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know if there's a letter I could write, a phone call I could make, that would bridge 20 years of silence and 6 months of lawyers. Some fractures can't be healed with language. Some relationships end not with a fight, but with a price tag that poisons everything it touches. She turned our history into a transaction. Once you do that, once you put a dollar amount on love, there's no going back. Not because the money matters, but because the asking changed everything. It told me that all those years, all those memories, all that kindness, it was conditional. It had terms and conditions I never signed. Family is the only thing that lasts, she told me once. Everything else goes away. But family stays. I wonder if she remembers saying that. I won my case. I kept my house. I protected what I built. And I am so tired of winning. Some nights I dream about that blue house on the bay. I'm 14 again, and she's healthy, and we're watching the water turn orange and pink. She tells me everything will be okay. Then I wake up alone in a house I own outright. The silence is absolute. They're giving me an award for saving his life. He's the man who killed my brother and walked free. I can't tell anyone. Posted in r/true off my chest. I don't know who else to tell this to. I can't tell my coworkers. I can't tell my family. I definitely can't tell the department therapist because there are things I'd have to admit that would end my career. So I'm telling strangers on the internet because I'm losing my mind and I need someone to understand why I can't sleep anymore. I'm a paramedic. Have been for 6 years. I work in a mid-sized city, and last Tuesday, my partner and I responded to a single vehicle accident on the highway. Car versus guardrail at approximately 70 miles per hour. The vehicle had rolled twice before coming to rest upside down in a drainage ditch. When we arrived on scene, the fire department was already working on extrication. The driver was trapped, unresponsive, with what looked like severe thoracic trauma and possible internal bleeding. His pulse was thready, barely there. Blood pressure crashing. The kind of patient where you have maybe a 7-minute window before you're not saving anyone anymore. I remember thinking, this guy's going to die before we get him out. But he didn't. I worked on him for 43 minutes. I performed CPR twice when he coded. I got an IO line in when we couldn't find a vein. I made decisions I'd second-guess in any other circumstance because I could feel him slipping and my gut said push harder. When we finally loaded him into the ambulance and I saw his vitals stabilize enough for transport, I allowed myself to think we might actually pull this off. We did. He went into emergency surgery at the trauma center. Multiple lacerations, a ruptured spleen, 3 broken ribs, and a skull fracture that somehow missed everything vital by millimeters. The surgeon called it miraculous. My supervisor called it exceptional field work. They're giving me a commendation next month. A plaque with my name on it. The local news wants to do a human interest piece about the heroic paramedic who refused to give up. Yesterday, I was filling out the final paperwork on the call. Standard stuff, patient information, timeline of interventions, hospital handoff notes. I hadn't paid attention to the name when we were on scene. You don't, usually. The patient is the patient. Age, sex, visible injuries, vital signs. That's what matters in the moment. But there it was on my screen. His full name. His date of birth. I didn't know who he was when I was working on him. I just saw a person dying. That's what we're trained to do, see the patient, not the person. Except now I know who the person is. The man I saved last Tuesday, the man I fought for, performed CPR on, refused to give up on, is the drunk driver who killed my younger brother 8 years ago. Update 1. For everyone asking what happened 8 years ago. I'll tell you about my brother. He was 19 years old. A sophomore at State University. He was majoring in secondary education because he wanted to teach high school history. He used to say that if he could get kids to care about what happened before they were born, maybe they'd make better decisions about what happens after. He was idealistic like that. Young and hopeful in a way I never was. He was driving home for Thanksgiving break. It was a Wednesday night, around 9 p.m. Clear weather. He was stone sober, probably singing along to some podcast he was obsessed with at the time. Something about medieval history, I think. He was such a nerd. The driver ran a red light at 47 miles per hour. My brother never saw him coming. T-boned on the driver's side. They said he died on impact, which I've since learned is something people say whether or not it's true because it's supposed to make you feel better. Like instantaneous death is somehow a comfort. It's not. The driver was drunk. Blood alcohol of 0.16, twice the legal limit. He'd been at a bar for 4 hours. He walked out, got in his car, and drove. Just decided his convenience was worth more than anyone else's life. He survived with a broken collarbone and a concussion. Walked out of the hospital 3 days later. And then he walked out of everything else, too. See, there was a problem with the blood test. The officer who administered the field sobriety test made an error in the documentation. The blood draw happened outside the legally required time window. The chain of custody was compromised because of a clerical mistake at the hospital. I don't understand all of it. I'm not a lawyer, but what I understand is this. The evidence of his intoxication was ruled inadmissible. Without the blood alcohol evidence, the prosecution couldn't prove impairment beyond a reasonable doubt. They could prove he ran the red light, but that was a traffic violation, not vehicular manslaughter. His defense attorney argued that without concrete evidence of intoxication, there was no way to establish criminal negligence. The judge agreed. He paid a fine, lost his license for 6 months, did some community service. That was it. My brother was dead, and the man who killed him went home and watched TV and eventually just went on with his life. I remember sitting in that courtroom when the verdict came down. I remember my mother's face. I remember my father's hands, how they were shaking. I remember thinking, this is what justice looks like. This is what happens when someone takes everything from you. They get a fine. They get community service. They get to keep breathing. I was 23 years old. I'd been working in retail, trying to figure out my life. I had no direction, no purpose. After my brother died, I enrolled in EMT training. I became a first responder because I couldn't save my brother. Because I was 200 miles away when he died, and by the time I got the phone call, he'd been dead for 3 hours, and there was nothing I could do. No action I could take. No way to fight. This was my way of fighting. Every life I've saved in the past 6 years has been me screaming into the void, not this time. Not on my watch. I couldn't save him, but I can save you. And now I've saved the man who killed him. Update 2. I went to see him. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was a terrible idea. But I couldn't stop thinking about him lying in that hospital bed, alive because of me, and I needed to see him. I needed to understand something. I don't even know what. The hospital is where I do most of my drop-offs anyway, so no one questioned why I was there. I walked through the halls I've walked through hundreds of times. I checked the patient board. Room 412. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. He looked different from the photos I remembered from the trial. 8 years older. Some gray in his hair. He was propped up in the bed, bandaged but awake, and when I stepped into the doorway, he looked at me with this expression of pure, genuine gratitude. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? I was just a face in a crowd 8 years ago. Just the brother of someone he killed. He probably never registered any of our faces during the trial. We were just obstacles between him and his freedom. "Are you the paramedic?" he asked. "The one who—" He gestured vaguely at himself, the bandages, the monitors. I nodded. I couldn't speak. "I wanted to thank you," he said. His voice cracked a little. "The doctor said I coded twice. Said if you hadn't—" He stopped. Took a breath. "You saved my life, man. I don't know how to thank you for that." I stood there. Said nothing. "I've been given a second chance," he said. "That's what my wife keeps telling me. She keeps saying God must have a plan for me. I don't know if I believe in that stuff, but I'm going to try to be worthy of it. You know, I've made mistakes in my life. Bad ones. But I've been trying to be better, and now I've got this chance to keep trying." He thanked me. Said I gave him a second chance at life. I wanted to scream that he got his second chance 8 years ago when he killed my brother and walked free. But I didn't scream. I just stood there and nodded and said something like, "Glad you're okay," and walked out before I did something I'd regret. I sat in my car in the parking garage for an hour. I couldn't drive. I couldn't move. My brother never got a second chance. He was 19. He was going to be a teacher. And this man just walked away and built a life on top of my brother's grave. Update 3. I learned about his life. I shouldn't have looked him up. I know that. But I couldn't help it. He got sober after the accident 8 years ago. Not because of the legal consequences, there weren't any, but apparently the experience shook him. He joined AA. He got therapy. He met his wife in recovery group. They've been married for 6 years now. They have 2 kids, a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. He coaches Little League in the spring. His team made the district playoffs last year. There's a picture of him on the league's Facebook page, surrounded by kids in jerseys, everyone smiling. He volunteers at a food bank twice a month. He works as an accountant. Nothing fancy. Just a regular job. He goes to church on Sundays. He mows his lawn. He seems, by all external measures, like a genuinely good person now. Everyone thinks he's a good man. And maybe he is. Maybe he really did change. Maybe that night 8 years ago was a genuine wake-up call, and he dedicated the rest of his life to being better. Maybe he thinks about it every day. Maybe he carries guilt that I can't see. Or maybe he just forgot. Maybe my brother became a statistic he processed and filed away. Maybe he moved on without a second thought because he was never forced to think about it. Maybe getting sober was just self-improvement for his own sake, not penance for what he took. I don't know which one is true. And I don't know which would be worse. His wife posted something on Facebook last week. A photo of him in the hospital, giving a thumbs up, surrounded by their kids. The caption said, "So grateful our miracle man is coming home. The doctors said it was touch and go, but thanks to an amazing paramedic who wouldn't give up, my husband gets to see our babies grow up. God is good." Folded hands. I read that and I threw my phone across the room. God is good. What about my brother? Was God good when a drunk driver ran a red light? Was God good when the blood test got thrown out on a technicality? Was God good when a 19-year-old kid who wanted to teach history got reduced to a body bag and a box in the ground? Where was the miracle for him? I don't know what to do with this anger. It's been 8 years. I thought I'd processed it. I thought I'd made peace with the injustice because what choice did I have? You can't live in rage forever. You can't spend every day drowning in bitterness. So I channeled it. I became a paramedic. I saved lives. I told myself that meaning could come from meaninglessness, that my brother's death could matter if I made it matter. And now I've saved his killer. And his killer's wife is thanking God on Facebook. And their kids are going to grow up with a father. And somewhere, in a cemetery 40 miles from here, my brother is still dead, still 19, still never going to be anything more than he was. Does that mean nothing? Does my brother's life mean less because his killer reformed? Update 4. The conversation I can't have. I've thought about telling someone. I've rehearsed the conversation in my head 1,000 times. I'd sit down with my partner, the guy I work every shift with, the guy who was there with me in that ditch fighting to keep the patient alive, and I'd say, "You know that save last week? The miracle one. The one we're getting commended for? That was the drunk driver who killed my brother 8 years ago." And he'd look at me. And he wouldn't know what to say. Because what can you say to that? Then I think about telling my supervisor. Or the therapist. Or my parents. My parents, who have never fully recovered. Who still set a place for him at Thanksgiving dinner and then stare at it with empty eyes. Who have a shrine in their living room, his graduation photo, his college acceptance letter, the last birthday card he ever gave them. What do I say to them? "Mom, Dad, I saved the man who killed your son. I'm getting an award for it. They're going to put my picture in the paper and call me a hero. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was him until after. And even if I had known, even if I'd recognized his face through the blood and the wreckage, I would have saved him anyway, because that's what I do, that's who I am, and I don't know if that makes me noble or if it makes me a traitor to our family. I can't have that conversation. I can't do that to them. So I carry it alone. Everyone says I'm a hero for saving him. But every time I close my eyes, I see my brother's face. And I wonder if I betrayed him. I replay the rescue in my head. I think about every decision I made. I administered epinephrine when his heart stopped the second time. I made the call to start transport even though he wasn't fully stable because I knew we'd lose him if we waited any longer. I squeezed a bag valve mask with aching arms for 12 minutes straight because the intubation failed the first time and I wasn't going to let him die of something I could prevent. I fought so hard for him. Harder than I've fought for most patients, if I'm being honest. There was something about the desperation of the scene, the certainty that he was going to die unless I did everything perfectly, that made me push beyond my usual limits. Was that irony? Fate? Cosmic cruelty? My brother died in a car accident. I became a paramedic because of it. And my most successful save, the one that's going to be framed on a wall, was the man who put me on this path by killing the person I loved most. I can't make it make sense. I've tried. I've turned it over and over in my head like a puzzle with missing pieces, and there's no configuration where it becomes okay. Update 5. The thing I can't admit. I need to confess something, and I need someone to hear it even if no one ever sees my face. When I was working on him in that ditch, before I knew who he was, there was a moment. A tiny window where his heart had stopped for the second time, and the defib wasn't getting a response, and my arms were burning from compressions, and I thought, this is it. We're going to lose him. And for just a second, a fraction of a second, I felt something like relief. Not because I wanted him to die. I didn't know who he was. But because sometimes, when a patient is crashing and you've done everything and nothing's working, there's this strange peace that comes with accepting it. The fight is over. You can stop. You did your best, and it wasn't enough, and that's nobody's fault. But I didn't stop. I kept going. I pushed through that moment and I got him back. Now I keep thinking about that split second of almost acceptance. I keep wondering if I knew. If some part of me recognized something in his face, some ghost of a memory from that courtroom, and almost let him go. I don't think I did. I think I was just exhausted, and he was just dying, and my hesitation was nothing more than the biological fact of human limitation. But I'll never know for sure. And I'll never stop wondering. If I had known, would I have worked as hard? Would I have pushed myself beyond the breaking point to save the man who killed my brother? The answer is yes. It has to be yes. Because I've built my entire identity on saving lives. Any life. Every life. The patient, not the person. That's the only way this job works. You can't ask the overdose victim if they deserved the Narcan. You can't check the criminal record of the car accident victim before deciding how hard to fight. You save people because they're people, not because they've earned it. He's sober now. He's a good father. He coaches kids. Does that erase what he did? Does my brother's life mean less because his killer reformed? I know the answer is no. My brother's life was worth exactly what it was worth. Everything to me, everything to our parents, everything to a future full of students who'll never learn from him. That worth doesn't change because his killer got better. My brother's death doesn't become acceptable just because something good eventually came from it. But the world keeps moving. That's what I can't handle. The world keeps spinning and children grow up and Little League games happen and everyone moves on, and my brother is still frozen at 19, and the only person who can't let go is me. Final update. The award ceremony. The commendation ceremony is next Friday. My supervisor sent me the program. There's going to be a speech about the rescue, how I demonstrated exceptional skill and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. How my quick thinking and refusal to accept failure resulted in the preservation of human life. The patient was invited. He sent a video message that they're going to play at the ceremony because he's still recovering and can't attend in person. In it, apparently, he thanks me by name. He talks about his family, his kids, how grateful he is to have more time with them. I've been told it's very moving. I'll have to stand there, in front of my colleagues, my supervisors, probably some local press. I'll have to smile and shake hands and accept a plaque that commemorates the night I saved the man who killed my brother. And I can't say anything. What would I even say? I regret saving him. I don't regret it. That's not even close to what I feel. I'd save him again. I know I would. Because that's who I am. That's what I do. That's the whole point. But I also can't pretend it doesn't hurt. I can't pretend that every time someone calls me a hero, I don't feel like a traitor. I can't pretend that when his wife posted that Facebook message thanking God, I didn't want to drive to her house and show her a photo of my brother and ask if her God had a plan for him too. I'm trapped in a heroic narrative that feels like a betrayal. If I tell anyone the truth, it'll sound like I regret saving a life. It'll look like I'm saying some lives are worth more than others. It'll destroy everything I've spent 6 years building, not just my career, but my sense of self. The belief that got me through the darkest nights. The idea that meaning can come from meaninglessness. I saved the man who killed my brother. And I have to call that the right thing. Because it was. It was the right thing. He's a father. He coaches kids. He got sober. He built a life. Whatever he did 8 years ago, he's a human being, and human beings deserve to live even when they've done terrible things. But my brother was a human being too. He deserved to live. And he didn't get that chance. So I'll go to the ceremony. I'll shake hands and smile and accept the plaque. I'll watch the video of the man who killed my brother thanking me for saving his life, and I'll nod graciously because that's what's expected. Then I'll go home. And I'll sit in the dark. And I'll look at a photo of my brother at 19, frozen in time, forever young and forever gone. And I'll wonder if he'd forgive me. I think he would. He was kind like that. Kinder than me. He'd probably say something about how holding on to hate only poisons the person holding it. He'd probably say that saving a life is never wrong, even when it feels unbearable. He'd probably tell me he's proud of me for becoming the person I became. But he's not here to say any of those things. And I'll never know for sure. That's the cruelest part, isn't it? The conversations we can never have. The absolution we can never receive. The questions that will never be answered. I saved the man who killed my brother. I'm being celebrated for it. And I have to live with that knowledge for the rest of my life. There's no resolution to this story. There's no satisfying ending where justice is served or forgiveness is granted or meaning emerges from the chaos. There's just me, a paramedic who did his job exactly right, feeling like he did something unforgivably wrong. I don't know why I wrote all this. I don't know what I expected from strangers on the internet. Maybe I just needed someone to know. Maybe I needed to say it out loud, or type it, anyway, because the weight of carrying it alone was crushing me. Thanks for reading, I guess. If you have answers, I'd love to hear them. But I don't think there are any answers. Some things just hurt, and you carry them, and you keep going because the alternative is to stop. And I can't stop. There are too many people who still need saving. Even if one of them was the person who took everything from me. Edit. Thank you for all the responses. I can't reply to everyone. I just want to say, for those of you who've experienced something similar, who've been forced to extend grace to people who destroyed your lives, I see you. I don't know if it gets easier. I don't know if there's peace on the other side of this. But I know you're not alone. We carry our ghosts together. The ceremony is in 6 days. I'll be there. I'll accept the plaque. And then I'll go to my brother's grave and tell him about it, because he's the only one who would understand. He always was the better listener. Here's the thing about being a paramedic. You save the patient, not the person. You don't check criminal records before deciding how hard to fight. You just fight. I didn't know who he was when I was working on him. I just saw a person dying. That's what we're trained to do, see the patient, not the person. I performed CPR twice. Got an IO line when we couldn't find a vein. Pushed harder than I've ever pushed because I could feel him slipping. 43 minutes in a ditch, refusing to give up. Then I saw his name in the report. And my blood ran cold. The man I saved is the drunk driver who killed my brother 8 years ago. My brother was 19. Going to be a teacher. He wanted to help kids care about history. A drunk driver ran a red light at 47 miles per hour. My brother never saw him coming. The driver walked free. Blood test thrown out on a technicality. He paid a fine. Did community service. That was it. I became a paramedic because I couldn't save my brother. Every life I've saved in 6 years has been me screaming into the void, not this time, not on my watch. And now I've saved his killer. He thanked me. Said I gave him a second chance at life. I wanted to scream that he got his second chance 8 years ago when he killed my brother and walked free. He's sober now. Has a wife. 2 kids. Coaches Little League. Everyone thinks he's a good man. Maybe he is. Does that erase what he did? Does my brother's life mean less because his killer reformed? My brother never got a second chance. He was 19 forever. And this man built a life on top of my brother's grave. They're giving me an award next week. A plaque. Local news wants to do a story. Heroic paramedic who refused to give up. I'll have to stand there and smile while they play a video of him thanking me. I can't tell anyone the truth because it would sound like I regret saving a life. Everyone says I'm a hero. But every time I close my eyes, I see my brother's face. And I wonder if I betrayed him. I'd save him again. I know I would. That's who I am. That's what I do. He's a human being. Human beings deserve to live even when they've done terrible things. But my brother was a human being too. He deserved to live. And he didn't get that chance. I'm trapped in a heroic narrative that feels like a betrayal. There's no resolution. No justice. No satisfying ending. Just me, a paramedic who did his job exactly right, feeling like he did something unforgivably wrong. I'll go to the ceremony. Accept the plaque. Watch the video. Smile and shake hands. Then I'll go to my brother's grave and tell him about it. He's the only one who would understand.